Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Valeria and this is the Off-Road Ranch, as usual. A lot of time has passed since the last video and a lot has changed. And this video is released only for you to understand what is happening. But initially I didn't plan to shoot it. Last time I told about the process and the choice of a site for myself. Beautiful, relatively large, full of green trees and bushes. I expected that I buy it and after some time I go there to inspect and show you. But everything turned out quite differently. Therefore, today I talk about the process of choosing a site one more time. I faced a very strange situation and a very vile attitude, and I want to warn you how it happens. So, last time I visited a number of the best sites. Firstly, there were around 50 of them in my list, but after detailed consideration, only 20 remained in my list. I told you about some of them, and I chose the site that I like. And it took a week. Due to weather conditions, different distances, early winter sunset, and low-speed driving on uneven terrain, it is possible to visit from 1 to 3 sites per day. So, I found the land that I like. But after the selection, the following situation happened. In the previous video about choosing a site, I told that the owners visited the land several times a month to have a rest on the weekend and didn't even come when I came to inspect the site. So it turned out that these people didn't even buy the land, but simply gave money to the previous owners 8 years ago. They offered me to do the same. I give them money, and if I have problems with government agencies, I say that I paid for the land without proof of ownership. But of course, in the legal field, it doesn't work that way. And I didn't want to get into new adventures immediately. And moreover, I didn't want to be involved in a legally incomprehensive situation that, in my opinion, perhaps even borders on a violation of the law. I was looking for the real owner for 2 weeks, traveling to different addresses and cities. It turned out to be that the house was inherited by an 80-year-old woman, and due to her age, she doesn't care what happens to the site and who's there. She didn't even get the papers for ownership. In order to clarify the situation, I took advice from familiar lawyers over a cup of coffee. I was told that there would be a long process of proving of ownership, and then a long process of drawing up the boundaries of the site and registering the buildings. And only after that, I can buy the plot from her. Altogether, it can take from 12 to 24 months. But due to her age, she will not do any of this. Moreover, she said that since she had already been paid for the site by those fictitious owners, she couldn't take money from me, and the contract had to be concluded in the amount of their dollars, and I had to pay fictitious owners somehow. So I had to give up the beautiful site. That is how it happens when you think that you have finally found your dream and imagine what you will do next. But in the end, you have to start the search again. I spent 3.5 months on searching the internet, choosing a list of sites, traveling around cities, coordinating the viewing time, clarifying all bureaucratic issues for each of the sites. And now I have to go and search again. But now I don't have time to visit sites on working days, since some plans have changed dramatically. My friends and I have very limited time. Therefore, we decided to visit them at the weekend. Therefore, in the evenings of the nearest working week, in my free time, I chose about 20 sites. Our friendly company went to inspect them on the very first weekend. Here, I will also talk about some of the most interesting of them, and I hope that by the end of 2022 I will be finally able to find and buy what I want. So, the first plot I'm talking about was 1,500 square meters. It was approached by a wide level road. There was a gas station nearby. For large settlements, this is insignificant. But since there was almost no infrastructure around, a gas station was a significant place where I could refuel, buy fuel for construction work, or emergency lighting and electrical appliance in case of a power outage. In addition, I could quickly buy food on the way to the site if I worked there. Also, the site could be reached by two roads. This was an advantage if one road was loaded with traffic, flooded with water, or a pole or a tree fell on it. In addition, there was a railway nearby, which could help in the delivery of building materials and equipment in the future. Another advantage was simple access roads, which made it convenient and simple for construction machines to come. The site was flat and optimally rectangular in shape. There was free land nearby, which could be leased later. There wasn't a single building on the site. No house, no barn, which meant no problems with old buildings and complete freedom in construction. But upon closer examination, the geologist paid attention to the unnaturalness of relief and the specificity of plant growth. He began to study more carefully and realized that several foundations were buried under the ground because earlier there were buildings on the site. Sometimes, for a simple solution to the issue of selling a plot, owners or government agencies may deliberately set fire to the dilapidated buildings. Even if the insurance company doesn't compensate for the losses, there is anyway no building on the site. This means there is no need to pay taxes and no need for decommissioning of an unhabitual building. And since taxes and complicities with old buildings are very repulsive for buyers, then no tax and no old building means there is no problem on the site. Sellers burn the building, cover the foundation with ground, and the buyer discovers it only after the purchase. This is very vile, and this is what real scam do, because you cannot build anything on this foundation if you want a reliable house. You cannot tell which house was there before and what materials were used. You don't know what kind of activities people were doing when they lived there. You cannot say if there are any other hidden reasons why the house was burned down. When buying such a plot without research, it is not clear how much the soil was polluted and what chemical substances poisoned the ground and groundwater. Such a foundation must be dismantled from underground, and this is always very difficult. It is necessary to order special equipment that will break concrete with a special drill, and then this waste must be taken out to specialized paid landfills. You can find a separate video and see how much troubles you will create for yourself and how much it will cost. So, I had to give up this option. The next plot I will talk about suited my requirements again. It was 2,000 square meters in size and had many buildings. There was a house of about 70 square meters, a vegetable store, pigsties, chicken coops, an apiary, a vegetable garden, an old garage and a bathhouse. On the one hand, this is very good, because it is clear that people were actively farming, which meant that there are favorable conditions and rich soil. Perhaps they were leasing neighboring land for farming, so I can try to do this later as well. On the other hand, almost all area was occupied by buildings, and many of them cannot be reconstructed and must be demolished. However, the advantage is that these buildings can be restored as a temporary warehouse during construction, which will protect materials from rain, sun, snow, wind, and other prying eyes and long dishonest arms. The weather was clear. Hospitable neighbors brought us tea, and we decided to have a walk. And of course, one rotten apple spoils the whole barrel. After walking approximately 150 meters, we found a huge swampy sewage ditch and behind it lone old industrial car sheds. We got closer. The car sheds were abandoned and smelly, and the sewage in the ditch also stank. We realized that this farm was simply abandoned a few years ago without being cleaned from industrial waste and animal waste. It wasn't disposed according to safety requirements, and now it has been slowly decomposing for a very long time, evaporating into the air and soaking into the ground and groundwater. It is unknown what waste in what quantity has already spoiled the soil around and at what distance. In addition, it is unknown what concentration of which harmful toxic substances is in the soil and in the air. And besides, it was impossible to determine the degree of toxicity of the air above the wastewater by eye, and we didn't want to check it personally. Therefore, in addition to the fact that the next 20th visited plot wasn't suitable for purchase, our mood deteriorated greatly from such an irresponsible attitude towards industrial production and such pollution of natural resources. I was so upset from all the failures that, out of frustration, I even wanted to go around the villages and randomly look for anyone who was selling the land. But my friend remembered that not far from the place where we were, friends of her friends were selling land 6 months ago. And she asked me whether I would like to go there and see the site. I agreed and we drove off. On the way, we stopped several times and asked the locals if anyone was selling the land. And several times we ordered to buy plots at sky-high prices. Therefore, we decided not to waste any more time and go straight there. I was despaired and decided that if this last plot didn't suit me, then I would choose from those that I have already showed you. So finally, this is the last piece of land that I want to tell you about in this video. It turned out to be a site on the very outskirts of a half-empty village. It turned out to be quite difficult to get to the site, especially in autumn, winter and spring. It's good that my friend has not a passenger car, but some kind of an SUV, because instead of the access road, there was a real off-road. We were lucky that there was at least one man among us, a shovel and other tools. It is pity that you will not see these shots. Nevertheless, we didn't reach the site itself 7 kilometers, and this path had to be done on foot. There are almost no neighbors around, but we managed to talk with a few people in order to understand who live there and how populated the village is. A bus runs here several times a week, which is convenient if there is no car. If, of course, the car can get there, because otherwise there is no sense in the car. Almost the entire area of the plot is covered with fruit trees and wild plants. There are also several large mature apple trees of a good variety, and if the trees are cared for, they will produce a rich harvest of wonderful tasty apples. There is also an abandoned garden around the site. There are no houses or huge trees around the site, which means that sun rays will always fall on the ground and warm the ground and the air. There are 2 large hollows in the nearby trees, and I hope that no one lives there, because dangerous or poisonous insects or reptiles can winter or live in such places. There are no buildings on the site, but due to the fact that bushes and trees grow throughout the site, it's quite difficult to determine what is the thickets at all. There are remains of a fence around the site, and it may be suitable for the time being to clothe the area. There is also a well on the site, and although no one cared for it, it can be cleaned and I will have good water. I liked the site itself and the nature around it as well, and I finally settled on it. It turned out that this land is quite expensive, more expensive than the previous options, so I can buy 2,500 square meters only. But the huge advantage is that it's possible, in theory, that I can rent the land around later. I will figure out these issues later, but the owner of the site looked like an adequate and honest person, and I found a common language with her. She showed me the documents for the property along with the size of the plot immediately, and offered to go to the state authorities on the next weekday, so that I could see the size of the plot, the category of land and the owner, and not waste time if I understand that something is going wrong. There are boring bureaucratic procedures underway now, and so far there have been no troubles. I hope that there will be no adventures anymore, because I'm tired and time is running out. I also hope that the registration procedures will take not half a year or a year. After receiving the documents on the ownership of land, I will inspect it and tell and show everything. And after that, I will make the list of necessary immediate work and the list of the most necessary tools that I needed to work on the site. Share in comments what difficulties and unpleasant situations you encountered when buying a plot, and whether anyone tried to deceive you. I also kindly ask you to subscribe and like, because according to statistics, a lot of people watch videos without a subscription. In this way, you will support me, and more people will know about the difficulties that they may face when choosing a site. I will be grateful for your support. It was Valeria, the Off-Road Ranch. Wish you all the best and see you soon.